Fun.
Thank you. Welcome to another Candid conversation with Chaos to Calm with Candice and Siobhan. I, of course, am Siobhan. You've got Candice. Again, I never know where I'm pointing, but she's beside me. So welcome. And today we are so excited to have Ariana Novak below us here in the conversation. She wanted to be gracefully introduced as a human, but I think that there's so many more hats that we should include with this. You're a transformational coach, you're a yoga nidra host, an ambassador for Lululemon, a yoga director. You work at Hustle and Flow as their yoga essentially guru in that place in Waterloo, Ontario. So you've got a lot more than just human, but I appreciate the grace in that. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so from Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. Yeah. Soaking up the sunshine. In Nasara. No, am I saying that right? Nasara?
You got it. Yeah.
The Beverly Hills of Costa Rica while we are here in Ontario. So thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Okay, so my first thing is, and this is, you got to help me through this journey here. How does a person go from being a math and computer science major to being a registered accountant to then suddenly living in Costa Rica and teaching yoga?
Oh, yeah. It's, I think we all have the ability to wear so many hats in this lifetime. And I went to university because it was the thing to do. It was the next step after high school. And naturally, it's like I have 3 brothers, and my dad, and they're all engineers. So they have like PhDs in physics and master engineers with rings on their fingers. So I was like, I should probably do something that my dad might be proud of. So I'm going to go to school for math and computer science. And I scraped through pretty good. And then, it wasn't until I actually finished university and got my first job at a university. And I hear how so many people relate to this, but I literally sat down at my first time real job or adult job. And I was like, this is it? Like, this is what I have been like building up to my whole life. Like it was so anticlimactic. I think that honestly led to a series of like probably a bit of depression of just like, is this all life is? Like, because what does money really mean if I'm not happy or I don't have ways to enjoy it or I feel purposeless? And so I lived in Burlington, Ontario at the time. I worked for a trucking company. It was my first job, making $55,000 a year. And I was bored at nights because I didn't know anybody in Burlington. And so I decided to start practicing yoga at the local hot yoga studio. And it was like on my mat the first time I ever did a class, and I was in downward dog and I was dying. And I was very, I would say, stagnant in my physical body. Like I wasn't somebody who, I had never been in a gym before. I wasn't somebody who was super physically active, and it was so uncomfortable. And it was like this big wake up call. And all of a sudden in that exact moment, like all of my worst gremlins, in coaching we call them gremlins, the thoughts in your mind that are just like running wild. All of my worst gremlins showed up of just like, you suck, you're not worthy, like you're never going to be fit, you're never going to be active, like die now, pretty much. And it was like so loud and so unbearing. And I really honestly, I don't think I had the words back then to articulate the conversation in my mind, but it was like, if I don't save myself now, I'm probably going to die. And it sounds so dramatic, but it really was like that dramatic in my mind. And from there, it was just like, okay, you're going to show up like every day in this hot yoga room and kill yourself every day in downward dog until you can hold a downward dog. And that was just my goal. It was like, just stay in downward dog for as long as everybody else is. Because one breath in a downward dog literally felt like 5 minutes. Can you guys resonate with that?
It's so funny. Yeah. Well, so I am also a hot yoga teacher, and I remember my first Bikram class, and I also went in going, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know why I'm here. And then suddenly I was like, oh my God, I'm melting. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And the entire 90 minutes, I just kept being like, I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to leave. And then I was like, nobody else is leaving. So I guess it's fine. But I was like, I actually think I am dying. I'm fairly certain I'm not going to breathe any longer. But I was like, okay, nobody else is doing it. And then when the class was over, I'm like, I am a superstar. I am one with this sweaty mat. And then I was like, I have to do this again. I have to keep coming back. But Candice, you can resonate with that.
Well, I can't, it doesn't resonate with hot yoga.
No.
I do enjoy yoga and it has transformed my life, but I'm not into it like you guys are. I'm like a once a week kind of gal. But what really resonates with me is working really hard to do the right thing, the thing that you feel was the next piece of the puzzle, to be in it and then say, to feel, when you say that dying and you call it dramatic, I feel that. I feel, and I love my career, but when you do what you're called to do, what makes your heart sing, to do anything but that is like it starts to steal part of your soul. And that is dramatic, but that's what it is. So I'm curious, Ariana, how about if you talked about your father and your brothers, how was it when you, well, we still want to know more about the shift, but I'm really curious about this transition. I'm thinking about them in the background.
Yeah, you know, for me, it was like very gradual. I honestly just wanted to go to my yoga mat because I was like, I need to start moving my body. And I felt so shitty in my body. Like I didn't have a relationship with my body. I didn't even, like breathing was uncomfortable. And I definitely struggled with my relationship with my body. And so I just went to my mat because I was like, these people seem nice enough in this yoga studio and it feels like they're not judging me, even though I feel like I'm judging myself like crazy.
Yeah.
And so it honestly was just like years and years of me just coming back to my mat. And I think a lot of it had to do with like, I don't feel strong enough to go to the gym or do any of these other really crazy physical exertion activities, but I can get myself to yoga. And that really was like my starting point, to being like, I want to love my body. And I was so inspired by all of these teachers in the ways that they like talked about their body and the way that they had so much love for themselves or like love in general.
Yeah.
And that was so vacant in my life at the time. And yeah, I like the long and short of it was I was in a relationship at the time and I really felt like I needed to go like date myself for a while and love myself because how I was showing up in that relationship was like jealous and like icky all the time and just like not a pleasant person to be around. And again, like it's always easier to see in hindsight. Like now in hindsight, I'm like, wow, I was a total bitch and like how would anybody ever want to date me? And it was because I totally didn't love myself.
Yeah.
And so my best friend, she went to Kripalu to do her yoga teacher training. She's like, you got to go to this place. Like, it's so incredible. It's in Massachusetts. It's the largest yoga institute. Like, just go. You live there. They heal you. It's so great. And I felt really called. Like, and again, it had nothing to do with me wanting to be a teacher. It was just like, I need to heal. I didn't have the words, but I knew that I had a long journey to get to a place where I could like, yeah, be proud of the body that I lived in and be comfortable with who I was. And so I went to Kripalu and I did my yoga teacher training there. It was a month long, and it was really hard for me. I had a lot of breakdowns. At one point, my body actually physically got really sick, and they were gonna like airlift me home.
Wow.
Because my body was having such like a purge reaction to you know, like finally releasing emotions that had been like locked and living inside of me and so much hurt that it was like bursting at the seams. And it was so crazy. My temperature was like skyrocketed and they were like, we have to bring you to a hospital. Like this girl is going to not do well. And I remember the director of the program, because it was like an like Kripalu, for those of you who have never been to Kripalu, it used to be an ashram. And when I did my training there, it was still very like not commercial at all. So the directors were like deep in the yoga practice, and like there was no sugar or caffeine or meat, and everything was very like traditional yoga. Anyway, she came to my bedside and she started doing Reiki. And I didn't know that it was Reiki, but she just literally started moving all this energy down into my feet. And my body temperature was so hot that like, I think it was like 105, and I was sweating so profusely. And literally within minutes, and that was like for 3 days, I was like that hot. And within minutes, my whole temperature had cooled down and I was fine. And then I went to night session that night.
Wow.
Wow. I'm just like, I know the power of Reiki. I can't even imagine that. That's a transcendent experience. Like, wow. Wow.
It's so fucking, and like I'm a mathy, so I'm like very
Yeah, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I don't really like, you know, if it hadn't have happened to me, I would say I never would believe in such a powerful practice, but it like fucking worked. It was crazy. So yeah, I think that really started me on a journey of like every day I'm committed to showing up for myself. I'm committed to like health in my body. I'm committed to, and I was so I like, it's, I hate all these like catchphrases now that people use because it feels like it takes the power out of how potent it is. But literally, I felt like for the first half of my life, I lived like asleep. Like I didn't feel like I was awake. And my tagline when I first started doing retreats and yoga stuff was always like, I want to help people thrive rather than survive, because that's what I felt like. I felt like for the first 25 years of my life, I literally was surviving.
Yeah.
And I had no interest to like talk to people or get to know people or like be curious or leave my house or like so many things. I was not interested in life.
I know.
It's so funny. Every interview that we've had so far, somebody has said something that resonates so deeply with exactly the type of work that we do. And one of our workshops focused on from surviving to thriving. So as soon as you said that, we both just kind of went, haha, yeah, we get that. And I mean, it's such a powerful thing for you to be, especially to have that experience yourself, and then to be like, I know how to then give this to other people. And, you know, I can say like firsthand, I get it because I've been there and I've done it. You know, especially from a math background, because a lot of people, if they hear Reiki, they're like, I don't know about all this, you know, moving around energy type things. So what happened then after that experience? So your fever comes down, they say, great, you can do a class now. We're good.
Your family's like,
yeah,
who the
like
hell is this girl? Because we don't know her.
Yeah.
I finished my training and I didn't again, like I didn't do it to be a teacher. I just did it because I was like, I need to save myself somehow. And so I went home and I literally like quit my job at the trucking company. I was like, see ya. And I left my partner of like 6 years. And I was like, I just need to date myself for 2 years. And I was so committed to that. Like I was like, not date other people, literally date myself. Like I was like, I'm gonna take myself to coffee shops. I'm gonna take myself to the bar and get a drink. I'm gonna take myself for dinner. Like I'm going to learn how to enjoy my own company. And the truth is like that process was actually very lonely and painful. And I would say like my parents were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like you had a guy who loved you, you had a stable job, like nobody understood. And I actually like, yeah, I felt really alone. But there was something like deeper in my heart that was just like, I have to tend to this regardless of what anybody says. And honestly, it was like, okay, the friends that I have aren't friends that light me up. Like I'm not curious about them, they're not curious about me. We don't have common ground. And so like I was so lonely. But in that loneliness, I really learned what it was to like have my own back and to do things that light me up and to not have conversations with people that I don't really care to talk to and don't really care to talk to me. Like I learned so much about myself. And you know, whenever people go through my yoga teacher training program, I always think a lot of them afterwards say like, well, they feel that sense of like nobody gets them or understands, or
Mhm.
nobody wants to have real conversations or be vulnerable or go deep. And there is sometimes there is like a letting go of almost like the life that we had in order to step into the life that we want. And it's so scary. And I feel like that really is the key to like thriving rather than surviving. You know, even like me being in Costa Rica right now, it was like I had to accept that there would be people in my life who like felt like that was like selfish, and all of these other like could pass judgment upon me. But I really just, I'm such an advocate for like, you do you, and I'm going to love whoever you're choosing to be, not who I want you to be.
Yep.
And that's like my tagline lately is like, let everybody be on their own journey. Let everybody learn what they want to learn when they're ready to learn it. It's not for me or you or anybody else to decide. And then let's love them anyways.
It's
So
beautiful.
Like, yes,
Yes,
everybody's exactly where they're supposed to be on their life journey.
Yeah.
Like, no, and that's because, you know, when we try to save people or we judge people, in the end, it's a reflection of ourselves. And by allowing others to be them, we allow ourselves to just embrace who we are and whatever we are becoming. And it is just life changing. Like, it's crazy. I love it.
Well, and it's funny because I obviously creeped through your website and your social media before this conversation, and you are an embodiment of how you portray yourself online. Because one of the things that came up to me is you'd spoken about relationships and how your relationships have been a string of self-destructive and self-diminishing. And that was something I pulled from your quotes. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And this journey that you've come on and how that shifted. And then there was somewhere else that you'd said that anything you want in life comes at a cost. And what is the cost that you would pay for the life that you want? And you've just basically described the journey of going through that process and how to have the life that you want does require shedding the old. And it's scary as hell. It's so, so scary. But I mean, look where you are now. Just, you know, you went from good, and on the other side of good was great. And you're, you know, showing us your glowing tan from Costa Rica. Oh, we're jealous here in Ontario.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking that this morning, because something that I'm hearing a lot for a lot of people, I've created like a new online program for meditation and coaching called Why Not Wonder. And at the beginning of the week, I asked people to like write, if you do nothing else this week, what are 3 things that would make you feel proud? And one of the things often is like moving my body. Like that's normally what bubbles up in people's lists is like moving my body. And I was thinking how so many people right now are like, well, I don't really like working at home. So like, I don't want to move my body because it's not ideal. And like, I'm not feeling really motivated because it's cold and it's dark and like, I already feel crappy in my body. And I honestly, I think so much like it sounds like tough love, but it's like, sometimes we have to do the things we don't want to do. Sometimes we have to do the things that don't feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
And I really, really do believe it. And I think like my dad's also a farmer. So I think it's a little bit been ingrained in me of a small kid of just like, get to work, kid.
Yeah.
And right. But like, there's so much, I wish people could see like, do things you don't want to do things that aren't going to be comfortable. Like moving your body is probably more important than feeling like crap for the whole 12 hours every single day because you haven't moved. If you just like commit to moving for 30 minutes. And like, I know you don't want to hear that because it's like, it's kind of shitty to be like, well, I don't want to do that. But it's like, great. Well, can you accept that you don't want to do something and you're going to do it anyways? And I think that is the key to change, is doing things anyways, even when we don't want to. And it's like such a simple answer.
But it is. It's simple and it's difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think as being in the self-help world for so long and like, you know, going back to a little bit to my journey. So after I did my YTT, I went and assisted at Kripalu for like years and years, and all these different facilitators and people who were like famous for positive psychology and all these different things. And like, I've read all these self-help books and I've gone to all these workshops and done things with Tony Robbins. Like, it's just never ending. And I think people pay so much money to like try to understand like what the secret is. And I think it's so simple. I think there's like, I like, if I was to like chalk it up to 3 things, I'm curious what you guys would say after me, but I think one is like the power's in your mind. So however you want to think about whatever's happening will change the result of whatever's happening.
Yep.
That's like bottom line. You change your mind, you change your life.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes people can think that like, well, no, COVID's just the perfect example. It's like, well, COVID's shitty and things like this year is going to be shitty because COVID's shitty. And it's like, you can choose to think that and you're creating your own suffering from thinking that. And that is like, the truth of it is you change your mind, you change your life. So I think that's number one. And that's why I'm so passionate about mindset work, because I think, you know, as being someone who like hated my life, hated the people in my life, hated myself, like hated moving, felt like because I had such a traumatic childhood in a lot of ways, felt like if people only understood how crappy my childhood was, then they would understand. But it's like, it doesn't matter if people understand, because I need to just change my mind about it. Yep. And so I think there's power in feeling feelings all the way through, but I don't think there's power in sitting in your feelings all the time. Like, don't let your feelings run your show, because they will totally run your show. So one is change your mind, change your life. Second is feel your feelings all the way through. I think so many of us can, I can resonate to a lot, and I'm sure both of you can, and I'm sure anybody who's listening to this can, is like, if you keep neglecting a feeling that lives inside of you, it will keep bubbling up and showing up in weird fucking ways. And that's why the world is weird right now. The world is weird and people are responding weird and doing weird things because feelings are showing up in weird ways that have been manifesting inside of you for a long time. And so I think if you never acknowledge the feelings that live inside of you, they will show up in weird ways.
Absolutely.
Do you want to tell her why we're laughing, Candace?
You say it.
So we have a 5-day online retreat called Pandora's Box that focuses on all of the things that go into the box, the feelings that we stuff inside that we carry and drag around, metaphorically speaking, our whole lives. And it's this entire process of recognizing, releasing, reuniting, resetting, all of these things that are in our boxes. So we 100% agree with you on that, because we also teach that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't think people realize that and we're going through a global phenomenon that is like it's history in the making. This is insanity. It's just an unbelievably phenomenal time. And you're right so much, Ariana. It's about your mindset. How are you going to approach this change that you have no control over? But when you talked about how the feelings show up in weird ways, I remember there was a point in my life where I held in all my anger. I wasn't able to express it as a young person. And one of the ways it came out was in my skin. So because the skin is what you show the world. So if you don't show what needs to be seen, you hold that in because you don't feel you can express it, it will come out. So I dealt with acne. And it's interesting how then that clears up. I still break out at my period, it's what happens, but what a difference. And so that mind-body connection, but also on a global scale, because the feelings of the world are coming to the surface. And I actually just said something about the other day, everything's coming to the top so we can skim it off and get to the good stuff. But it's got to come up. Yeah. Okay. What's number 3?
To add to that so quickly is like my teacher, Kobe, she always says, the world is falling apart and that's the good news.
Yes.
Because when things fall apart, things can then be put back together. Right. So it's like, maybe we actually needed this to happen to then wake up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So super cool that you say that. Okay. And then the third one is, I always get to choose how I want to show up.
Yeah.
And I am only responsible for me.
Yeah.
And that is such a practice. I swear to God, I'll probably practice it until I'm 90 or dying, is like, I always have a choice. And when I really like can take that pause to ask myself, often when I ask myself in shitty situations, how do I want to show up? Regardless of what's going on right now, how do I want to show up?
Yeah.
It's so clear to me that like the values that I really value and want to live by are always how I want to show up. And it's never, whenever I like ask myself, it's never with hate. It's never with judgment. It's never with frustration. It's always with like compassion and understanding and truth and like humanness. And it's just like such a guiding force for me to really get to know. So the third one is like, get to know your values, like pick your top 3 or your top 5 and like really ask yourself, like, how am I living into these values every single day in every single person that I talk to? Because it is the little things that are the big things. And that is like the mantra that I think I would leave this session with, is like, it's in the little moments of how we look at somebody when we're at the grocery store. That little moment can have such an impact, positively or negatively. It's in the little moments where we choose to drink water over your 4th coffee. It seems like such a little moment that might not mean anything, but it means everything. And yeah, I really do believe that like change can happen right now. And COVID or no COVID, change is always available, and it is a choice. Always.
That is a beautiful way to leave off.
I am beaming. Like, I feel so, my heart feels so full from this conversation.
Yeah.
You exude all of the energy that we try to impart on others as well. And so I don't know, I'm sure Siobhan too, like we're in it together. But when we link up with such, like I was gonna say kindred spirit. I'm such a like Anne of Green Gables fan, or if you know.
Great.
Like when you really feel that connection, and when you're like-minded, you know you're in the same soul group, and like this is the message that needs to go out to the universe, to the world. And when you see how many other people are out there that are living the life that you value, like Ariana, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your messages. I think there's 4 instead of 3. I think the last one, it was like kind of distinctively different, so I'm going to coin you with 4 main lessons of life. And I really appreciate that. So I have one last question before we close up. I'm going back to the question about your dad and your brothers. I don't know where your mom landed on it, but you said at first when you made these choices that you didn't feel you felt alone, because they were big choices that you had to make for yourself. But how do you, how do they approach or, you know, acknowledge your where you are right now in your success of life, basically just because you're loving you where you're at? Or they're still going, girl, at least you still have your damn degree.
No. Like I would say my mom definitely, when COVID hit, she was like, corporate job, I told you, safety and security, number 1. But I think that they have like really learned to love me for who I am. And I think they've also accepted that like I'm probably not going to like adhere to what they think is best for me. And so I think it's just like, you know, we went through long periods where me and my family wouldn't talk. And I think we've all kind of, in a very silent way, have come to an agreement that it's like, I'd rather have you in my life and accept that we're gonna be different than not have you in my life at all.
And maybe you no longer feel the need to show up in the way that's expected. You're showing up for yourself. Is that feel?
Yeah. And you know, like I've really done so much work of just like, I just want to love the shit out of my family, because they're like, I just want to like let go of all the ways that I wish that they were different parents and different brothers and sisters than they are. Because like I have so many expectations of like, can't my dad just be, but it's just like, he's so fucking awesome. He's like a hippie living in the middle of nowhere, vibing it to his own beat. So it's like, I don't want to miss that. And so I think like it's taken 10 years to get here, of like a lot of hurt and a lot of maybe like disapproval, but we're definitely at a place now. Like my dad, before I left, he was the last person I told I was going to Costa. I'm like, okay, I know you're not going to like this, but I can't lie to you. I'm going to Costa Rica. I hope you're okay with it. And his response was so beautiful. He just said, I highly advise against it, but I support you no matter what.
Oh, I love it.
That's
Great.
amazing. That is a beautiful way to end that conversation. I love you no matter what. And that's also meeting people where they are, and it's checking your expectations. So this was so fantastic. And I know that Candace has already said it, but we are so grateful that you've chatted with us, and your energy vibrates through the screen and that infectious smile. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And we will leave all of your socials and contacts. And I know you've got teacher trainings coming up, and I would love for people to be able to get in on that. And we will definitely look forward to our next conversation, because you're fantastic. So thank you for chatting.
You guys all vibe high. I have to say, like, it does feel like there's just an energy among the three of us, and yeah, it just feels so great. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing, and I really do believe that it's powerful work, and people need it and want it and are craving it, and like, thank you for setting this up. So yeah, keep doing you.
Thank you
We'll
so
see you
much.
on the next podcast.
Take care.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.